Hey guys, it's your girl Jessi.
Jessi is always entertaining, and she's in high demand these days. And if you're a K-pop fan, you might be nodding your head up and down because she's known for her brutal honesty.
Just doing things the way she wants. Yes, I am very honest. I mean, somebody has to do it. Honest person. Thank you.
Or from the song Nunu Nana. Or her famed Showterview web series. So if you're familiar with Jessi, you're probably a fan. But if you're not familiar with her, it's all good. Because you've come to the right place. We're gonna break down one of K-pop's most electrifying, in-your-face, and one of the most successful soloists in K-pop music history. So today in K-pop land, Jessi is one of the most popular singers today. So the question is, how big? For starters, she's achieved the rare feat of being popular not only in Korea, but overseas as well. This alone is huge, since most Korean singers are only popular within Korea, but virtually unknown overseas. But while her career is at an all-time high today, it wasn't always smooth. In fact, I would say that Jessi's career has a lot of parallels to the group Brave Girls, who experienced their own comeback in early 2021. Because for the first 9 to 10 years of Jessi's own career, she was hardly noticed by mainstream. And in fact, there were several points in her career that she could have called it quits, and very few would have even noticed. But fortunately, she didn't do that, she stuck around, and in the end, her career would be one of the greatest comeback stories, not just for soloists, but in the K-pop industry itself. To understand Jessi's rise against all odds, we have to go back to the beginning, all the way back to 2003. Jessi arrived in Korea at the young age of 15, and she would go under her full name, Jessica H.O. The rapper was born in New York, grew up in New Jersey, and would now get a taste of living in Korea for the first time. She would sign with Doremi Media and first debut in 2005 with her single Get Up. A year later in 2006, she would take over as the lead female in Uptown from legendary singer and rapper Yoon Mi-rae. Uptown was founded by 4 overseas Koreans back in 1996, so Jessi would find at least some comfort in the group, seeing that she was mostly accustomed to American culture at this time. Yet she would stay in the group only for 1 year before pursuing a solo path. Now during this time, K-hip-hop did not enjoy much popularity even within Korea. While there was a vibrant hip-hop community and there were many Korean rappers in the mid-2000s, the genre was underground and didn't have mainstream exposure. Being a rapper was not a profitable career at all, as hip-hop singers really did it for the passion, since there was little money and fame in the genre. Early on in Jessi's career, she made a major mistake when she put down a certain K-pop legend, getting her major backlash from the public. So Jessi posted on Tiffany's MySpace page about a certain singer named Boa. Now during this time, Jessi and Tiffany were good friends, and that Tiffany is well known today for joining one of the biggest groups of all, Girls' Generation, or Sonushide. But unfortunately for her, Boa was insanely popular during that time and well loved by both Koreans and Japanese. As Jessi admitted later, she never hated Boa. Rather, Jessi says that she was young and dumb back then. If I had to say, she was probably most likely jealous of Boa since she was peaking at the time with her career at an all-time high in both Japan and Korea. She would also later apologize to Boa, but the damage was already done to her image. She would make some other putdowns about other stars as well, such as Korean-American actor Daniel Henney, who was popular in Korea at the time. She was very opinionated and really didn't think about the consequences of her words. To Jessi's defense, she was still young, still a teen, and teens often do dumb stuff, so people can change for the better. Yet Jessi would quickly learn that saying controversial opinions can destroy a person's career, especially if you're just starting out. During her teenage years, she would attend Korea Kent Foreign School, a school that many overseas Koreans attend. Jessi would befriend other K-pop singers attending the school, such as Jessica and Tiffany from Sonushide, and CSJH The Grace member Stephanie Kim. Tiffany and Jessi, as we will see later on, would soon become best of friends. While Jessica and Tiffany would sign with the prestigious SM Entertainment, it was tempting for Jessi to also join the same label, as she passed an SM audition. However, seeing that SM didn't fit her style, it didn't fit her native New York, New Jersey hip-hop roots, she turned it down. Thus far, Doremi Media spent just over $700,000 in her training, but her songs didn't catch on. Her 1 year in Uptown also didn't make her any more popular. By 2008, the narrative on Jessi was that she was, sadly, a failed singer, that she was just some cocky singer from the US that couldn't adapt to to the Korean music industry. You can see from these comments on forums back in 2008. And what a time, because forums back then were really popular. Not so much anymore. But going back to these forums, you can see how netizens thought about Jessi and her reputation. Now personally, I don't like to use the word failed, as it implies that unless you reach the top 10% of singers in the K-pop industry, that your career was a waste. That's a shame, since if you're already past the K-pop auditions and already debuted with a song, you've already beaten the odds. Even though Jessi's career, up to 2008, wasn't the biggest, she still had music credits to her name, including being on Uptown for a year. Yet, a lot of the international K-pop netizens already written her off that year, which makes Jessi's eventual comeback story that much better. Looking at this comment of, I hope she matures too, and remakes herself. Oh boy. You know, this commenter that said this, Jackie Sat, well, if Jackie still keeps up with K-pop today, her mind must be blown away, because not only would Jessi remake herself, but she would become one of the biggest solo acts over a decade later. But it wasn't just Jessi's relatively unknown popularity at the time. Looking at her image back then, it was a lot more on the cute side, and definitely not the Jessi that we know today, that I felt she was holding back. The final thing that broke Jessi happened in 2009. Her contract stipulated that she needed to release one more song. She didn't want to do it, but at the same time, she didn't want to break her contract. Thus, she was forced to act happy in her new release, Life is Fun, also known as Life is Good. By this time, Jessi was spent, worn out, and definitely not having fun. Yet the word fun was emphasized and said over 10 times in the song, betraying the feelings that Jessi had during this time. That life actually sucked for her. She didn't like the song at all, and she was lying how she felt, as you can see from her face that she didn't want to be performing the song. But management pushed out the song anyway. Fortunately, another iconic hip-hop star, Yoonmi would have her back and comfort her during her roughest moments. As she later confessed to Yoonmi and her other friends, such as fellow singer Henry Lau, she felt lost in Korea. She had an extremely hard time adjusting to the culture, she didn't know anyone there, and she felt like no one really accepted her. Jessi would remember Yoonmi, Henry, and others that supported her during this time. By the end of 2009, when K-pop started to explode around the world and Korean hip-hop was gaining more recognition within Korea, it was a good time to be a musician. Her best friend Tiffany was getting major exposure as Sonushide would explode that year. Yet instead of riding the K-pop wave of 2009 and beyond, Jessi would go on a lengthy hiatus from the music industry and head back to the US. At the age of 20, Jessi was already feeling burnout. And for a hip-hop star, that's incredibly young. As a Kyopo, or Korean American, she had a hard time adjusting to Korean life and culture, as she was still used to American culture and its way of life. So she would go back to the US for 5 years to take a break, and she was seriously thinking of quitting the Korean music industry and moving to the States permanently. During this 5-year hiatus, things were looking quite grim for Jessi. Her career up to this point, sadly, went unnoticed in the music industry, with only the hip-hop scene knowing who she was. As mentioned earlier, she was burnt out and felt lost in Korea. She had to see her family and friends back in the US to be rejuvenated. And you know, that's understandable. From 2005 to 2009, she was already been in the industry for 4 years. And when you are in the entertainment industry and not seeing that instant success, especially when you're young, it's easy to feel dejected and quit. Yet in 2013, she would get out of her funk back in the US and try once more to work in the Korean music industry. Yet when she came back to Korea, her situation was so bad that she was at one point homeless. She had to sleep in saunas, known as jinjabangs in Korean, where she didn't have enough money to afford her own place. She would also be involved in a physical assault case in Itaewon, where a woman claims that Jessi attacked her. But Jessi countered that it was her friend instead from the US and not her that got into the fight, and that she was just trying to break up the fight. While the case was dropped the very next day, things already didn't look good for Jessi's comeback. Yet despite the setback, Jessi was determined to give music another shot in Korea. In 2014, Jessi would re-emerge from her 5-year hiatus. To change things up, she would discard her previous stage name of Jessica H.O. and go simply with Jessi, saying that she wanted to start again from the beginning. She would join a new group called Lucky J under YMC Entertainment in the hopes of reviving her career. The group would take 2 male singers versed in hip-hop and R&B and combine them with Jessi's rap and vocal skills to make a 3-person co-ed group, a trend that was tried out often during the early 2010s. Lucky J, however, would only last 2 years, as they would disband in 2016. With Lucky J not going anywhere, Jessi was depressed and fell into a dark place. She was probably thinking that maybe music wasn't meant to be, that maybe she had to look for another path. Yet, when a producer called her to be on an upcoming rap reality show in 2015, Jessi would get the big break of a lifetime. When Jessi joined the first season of Unpretty Rapstar, it's easy to see why she became such a hit so fast.
Yo, it's your girl Jessi. I don't think you're ready for this one.
To promote Unpretty Rapstar, the show's commercial often had Jessi on the forefront, oftentimes taking out-of-context clips to show her cutthroatness and ruthlessness. Probably the most popular quote being, "This is a competition."
근데 we're not a team. 우린 팀이 아니야. 이거는 one is every man for themselves, right? We're not a team. This is a competition. 이거 competition이야.
Showing that she's not going to hold back, much to the delight of the Korean TV producers, as drama is always going to bring in the hits. And then once you start adding her smack talk, her rap verses, and her unwavering confidence, it's easy to see why she became one of season 1's breakout stars and how the show ultimately turned around her career. Jessi not shying away at all at being a confident, straight-shooting rapper worked to her advantage. She would combine that newfound confidence with her New Jersey influence to make her a fan favorite early on. Her rap skills and swag were on full display against Little Cham, where she attacks Little Cham in both Korean and English, and telling her that she's superior and can't handle her.
Yo, it's your girl Jessi. You trying to stop me, baby? You should knock it off. Now I know you're snapping, new boy. PB 멋진 PB go. 이쯤에서 느껴져 what you mad about. 있는 법부터 일단 배워. 도너사가 필요해 보이는 발성. Living large, running fast. 이 순간을 즐겨봐. 영등무시 불빛. All eyes on me.
When Little Cham fires back, her rap, to put it nicely, was quite cringe, as her strategy was to put down Jessi in speaking English and how she doesn't understand Korean.
랩한 적 없잖아 단 한 번도 박자에 맞춰 영어를 뱉을 뿐 랩하라 못했지 입으로도 연애 코리아 근데 그거 가사 내 말을 못해요 지금 내 말은 알아듣긴 하는지 모르겠어 So you.
After watching that video, you don't have to be a hip-hop expert or like Eminem to know that was pretty bad. Heck, even though Little Cham was putting down Jessi's English, she started to rap to Jessi in English.
English, all the it's all good 'cause I can do it.
And as you can imagine, that strategy backfired seconds into Little Cham's rap. The judges, the audience, and even Jessi herself knew that Little Cham came woefully unprepared for Jessi. Heck, even the YouTube comments knew that Little Cham was severely outclassed, with several hilarious comments. What's even worse is that Little Cham chose Jessi as her opponent, which is a bold move to put it as nicely as possible. Jessi was already a 10-year veteran of the industry. She's seen the highs and lows. She polished her hip-hop craft in the 2000s, and while she did have a 5-year break in between, she was already well versed in the Korean hip-hop scene. So unless you're confident that you can match up with Jessi rap-wise, picking her as an opponent was gonna be an auto loss. But as awesome as Jessi was on that show, she wasn't invincible, as Jessi was slayed during her rap battle versus Kisum, where Kisum was actually the underdog. Kisum was just on that day.
Jessi, 영어로만 뛰는 것 뭐라 하는지 하나도 아무도 못 알아들어 언니에게 어울리는 장소는 이태원 모두가 알고 있지 이미 소문난 네 행동.
Jessi also admitted that year that Kisum deserved to win that battle. In the end, Jessi would get second place on Unpretty Rapstar Season 1, with the first place winner being Cheetah. As for Kisum, she would end up as a semi-finalist. While Jessi didn't win the whole thing, I would say that long term, she was definitely the winner, as she was a huge breakout star of the show and the catalyst of her huge success past this point. After Unpretty Rapstar, she would capitalize on this fame and perform in the US, doing a concert in LA. Jessi would get further exposure, being featured in JYP's song Who's Your Mama, as the song peaked at number 1 on all 9 major Korean charts. To say 2015 was a good year for the hip-hop star would be an understatement, as she would go from a relative hip-hop unknown to one of the biggest comebacks in the Korean music industry in just 1 year. The show was just not important in putting Jessi back on the map in the Korean music industry, but it was a much-needed confidence boost that reaffirmed that she can succeed in the music scene. the woman who was on the verge of quitting music altogether just a year ago is now in sudden demand, signifying the start of an incredible comeback after 10 years ago, back in 2005. In 2016, she would make another impactful move. She would go on Sister Slam Dunk, a popular show that won a slew of end-of-the-year awards. And this would continue Jessi's rise after the mega popular Unpretty Rapstar. But rather than just rely on the badass, confident image that she portrayed on the rap variety show, she would switch it up by being hilarious, being down to earth, and being a bit more humble. We would see this on the next series of shows that she was on. As for Sister Slam Dunk, this show aimed to fulfill each host's dreams. Actress Min Hyo-rin wanted to be a singer, so Jessi would join up with her other hosts to form a temporary female group called Onnis, a cast that consisted of ladies from their 20s to their 40s, including her longtime friend, Tiffany. Onnis would prove to be a big hit with their song, Shut Up. The Korean public would see her on Korean TV, making her more known to a general audience. Now, an underrated theme that's not talked about during this time was her improved image from a decade ago. No longer was she being dragged down for her boa comments and brash attitude from a decade earlier. Jessi being favorable among the Korean public put her well past those ill-advised, controversial comments in the rearview mirror. Jessi would continue to double down on these variety shows, and she would put emphasis on going on as many variety and music shows as possible. She would guest judge on Unpretty Rapstar Season 2, High School Rapper, and Cap Teen. And she would also release a new album called Universe in 2017, and a single in 2018 called Down, which did have some controversy because she was in a bikini and doing some twerking. And if you've been to Korea, the country is still a bit more conservative, so seeing a twerking Jessi might be fun to us international fans, but to a lot of Koreans, not so much. But the single Down would also represent the last one under a music label, YMC Entertainment. In 2019, Jessi would make another move that would explode her career to further heights. She would leave YMC Entertainment to join the newly formed P Nation under the iconic Psy. Jessi would be Psy's first artist in his label, as Psy himself left YG Entertainment to create his own company. According to Jessi, Psy scouted her to join his brand new label and wouldn't take no for an answer, that Psy was going to make Jessi a superstar, and that he did. Jessi would hit new levels of popularity after joining P Nation, with the creative freedom, a boss that wanted her in Psy, and a fresh new label that was already in high standing in the industry. Jessi's career would flourish even more. She would collaborate with fellow Korean American singer Jay Park on the single Drip, which would hit 16th on the Billboard US charts. And then she would prepare for her upcoming year, a year that would be her biggest thus far. As Jessi became more popular and now front and center into the spotlight, many became curious about her upbringing, how she grew up, her actual origin stories, once forgotten story back in the mid-2000s. She would open up about her struggles on MBC's I Live Alone, and when she grew up, she experienced some racism and bullying. Jessi gives utmost credit to her two brothers for always sticking up for her during school, that she was able to avoid any major bad paths due to her brother's influence. So when she came to Korea for the first time in 2005, she already experienced some real lows, and that she would experience a lot of culture shock for being a Korean American. So she knew she had to have thick skin. As for her belief in children today, she feels that children have to be strongly raised, that you have to teach them to fight back. If someone bullied me for having small eyes, I got angry and hit them back. Bullying is wrong, and it happens in the US as well as in Korea. She would use these lessons to endure the hardships of the Korean entertainment industry and eventually thrive in it. One of the biggest changes of Jessi's career hasn't just been her incredible success, but it's also been her look, her image, and how she got plastic surgery to change that appearance. Take a look at this footage from her from September 2014 from the show After School Club, before her surgery.
Very, very excited to have you here.
Do you like our studio?
I do. It's so nice.
Very colorful.
It's so comfy.
It's comfy?
It makes me want to just like...
Although there's no definite date when she undergone surgery, it would have been most likely to be around late 2014 or early 2015, after this after-school interview. And this is where we can see that her look changes drastically. To her credit, she would admit to having undergone plastic surgery on the show Sister Slam Dunk on June 3rd, 2016. And while plastic surgery is common in Korea, it's still considered taboo outside the country. Among the cosmetic changes that are on the record include her nose, eyelids, and lip filters. Jessi felt that she wasn't photogenic enough pre-surgery back in 2009, yet many Korean netizens would say otherwise. They said that Jessi looked more pretty, more natural back then, pre-surgery. However, since most people knew Jessi after Unpretty Rapstar in 2015, they had no idea how she looked back then. So when comparison pictures between her pre and post-surgery were leaked online, they soon went viral, and they couldn't believe Jessi's look back then. However, to be fair, I think that her look today does make Jessi more unique, and if she likes how she looks today, then hey, that's more power to her. If you told Jessi back in 2005 when she first debuted, or even 4 years later in 2009 when she moved back to the US to take a 5-year break, that she would be winning major awards over a decade later in 2020 and have her career turned around, she would say that you're lying. But there she was at the Mama's 2020s with her song Nunu Nana and winning favorite dance performance for a female soloist.
Nunu Nana. Nunu Nana.
The song peaked at number 2 on the Gaon Music Weekly charts, and at the time of the video, has just over a staggering 150 million views. She would even win an award at the SBS Entertainment Awards for her MC work on her new YouTube web show called Showterview on SBS's YouTube channel Morbidic. This show came out in 2020 and would be another platform for Jessi to expand her influence to the general Korean public. And she would also win Best Hip Hop Song at the 2021 Seoul Music Awards. Jessi would also temporarily join a girl group called the Refund Sisters, formed off their variety show Hang Out With You. The group was intended to be a dream girl group, with Lee Hyori wanting Mamamoo Hwasa, legendary singer Jung-hwa, and Jessi to be a part of it. And for this group, they would go under aliases, and Jessi's alias would be Unbi. The group would only last about 1 month, as they would both debut and end with the single Don't Touch Me, where the single would hit number 1 on various Korean charts and heck, even number 8 on the US world charts. By teaming up with 3 other powerful ladies in the K-pop industry, Jessi was associated as being a powerhouse singer as well. She became recognized as a tier S solo singer in terms of celebrity pull and influence, with her being on an already powerful, recognized new label in P Nation. She would be getting a slew of new deals and invitations on Korean TV shows, podcasts, and music shows. She's been on Burger King ads, as well as a collaboration ad with the iconic powerhouse male group BTS.
Oh my god.
She's also debuted as a first-time actress in the TV Chosun drama Somehow Family, and she would achieve the rare feat of being known to both Koreans as well as the international community. She would finally get that mainstream recognition in Korea that eluded her for much of her 15 years, and throw off any last doubt that her career failed or would never take off, as 2020 shows that Jessi is now getting the last laugh. She's now on top of the Korean music industry, but boy did it take a long time. It took 16 years. So if you're ever looking to give up on something and you really want it so bad, look to Jessi's story for inspiration. She's still great friends with Tiffany.
근데 여기서는 우리가 한국말을 해야 돼. 미국말 못 쓰게.
영어를 못 쓰게.
미국말. 아 미국말.
Like I'm
이거 봐.
왔다 갔다.
그러니까 이거 할 때마다. 그러니까 이거 할 때마다.
During the interview, Tiffany tells Jessi that Jessi is changing the game, meaning that she's paving the way where female singers in Korea can be more brash, be more real, and be more independent and still be popular. And this goes against the whole idol image of being demure, pure, or always agreeing. Tiffany's interview was even more interesting as Tiffany believed that Jessi had the talent to join 소녀시대.
아, 원래 소녀시대 될 뻔할 수도 있었어요. 알아요? 그걸 모르는 거야.
And that even though Jessi didn't, that Tiffany and her got to work together as part of the Unnies. She's known for her instant chemistry with Henry Lau.
To you.
Her and Henry go way back before Jessi became famous and was struggling back in the late 2000s. Her Showterview program is doing better than ever, interviewing huge stars like Emma Stone.
Welcome Emma Stone. Let's go, baby.
For Western K-pop fans, she's even been on BuzzFeed to read thirsty tweets.
That little raspy thing she does with her voice sometimes is so sexy to me. Oh, I know what she's talking about. Huh?
And she guest appeared on the wildly popular dance reality show Street Woman Fighter.
너무 섹시하고 예뻤어.
Unlike her 2009 song, Life is Good back then, when she was forced to sing it, today, life is actually good for Jessi. From sleeping in saunas or jinjabangs and barely scraping it by in 2013, to now being worth millions of dollars, it's a huge turnaround. A turnaround that's rare in the K-pop industry, especially after doing it for 16 years, and one that honestly should be compared to the Brave Girl's own sudden comeback in 2021. So what are some of the lessons learned from Jessi's career? How did she manage to stage a huge comeback? It was like she was playing 4D chess in the K-pop world and had her successful comeback planned from the very start. Let's recap. Number 1, you have to have thick skin, and that's because of number 2. The Korean music industry is tough and very unforgiving. Anything that you'll do will be judged and could end your career. That's why K-pop stars and their labels try their hardest to hide any scandals or anything that's even remotely controversial. And then you have many of the fans where their expectations are unrealistic, where if you don't hit the top 10% of singers, you're considered this failed singer. Number 3, she leveraged her brutal, honest, confident persona to reviving her career on Unpretty Rapstar. Number 4, but at the same time, she showed her more soft side, especially on interviews and skits on her web show, Showterview. This made her more relatable. Number 5, she leveraged her English ability in rapping, talking to Kyopo celebrities, and interviewing international celebrities. And number 6, she would go on a TV show spree to become popular and get noticed by the Korean mainstream. This is a vastly different strategy to just going on music shows and performing like Music Bank or Inkigayo, and just getting popular by just K-pop fans. All these strategies made Jessi the huge star in the K-pop music industry today. And Jessi's journey to becoming that big star is a great case study, how to never give up, and for future K-pop stars, how to hack their career to the top. So thank you for watching this video, and I'd love to know your take in the comments below. 2 other things to mention. If you want real talk with no fluff on how the K-pop industry actually works, then please grab my free ebook by signing up for the email list below. And if you like what we do here at Popsori, then please consider supporting us on Patreon. It's not necessary, of course, and we're honored if you just watch our videos. But for those that do support us on Patreon, we have some cool perks waiting. And as always, I'll see you in the next video. Take it easy, everyone.